New World Fantasy Football, we are back. Free agency has been crazy. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to get into our team this episode. Good charges, but free agency is what it is, and I gotta say, goodbye, my lover. Goodbye, my friend. You are not the one for me. So say bye to that. How you feeling, Paul?
I'm feeling good, man. I appreciate that little vibe check there. Obviously, I know we were going to touch on some of the big free agency moves. That was one of the bigger names that got moved in free agency. But I'm curious, how do you feel about that? Because I've noticed kind of like this thing happening online where like, okay, Saquon's dead to us, according to Tiki Barber to the Giants. How do you feel about where Saquon ended up and what his legacy kind of means to you now?
I'm gonna keep this as brief as possible. Obviously, being the massive Giants fan that I am, I have my thoughts on it, and my feelings about it. They're not really there. I don't care. I don't really care that much. Even that he went to Philly, like I'm fine with it. Hey, you let the guy go. It's like you break up with your girl. You can't dictate who she's going to date next. You know, dated your rival. Oh, well, so be it, man. What can you do? So I'm not really upset by it. I think that social media spin is what it is. I saw what Tiki Barber. I heard him say it. I saw it on the show. He was not like, you are dead to us, Saquon. We hate. It was just like he was more like playing around. Like, you go to Philly, man, we're dead. You're dead to us. Like, he was more so. It was half in jest. He wasn't like totally crapping on Saquon for what he chose to do.
When things get aggregated, they get taken in the worst possible way.
And Saquon throughout his career has been very like sensitive, and he's engaged in the fan base. And you have people now calling him a snake and a liar. Like, he wanted to be a Giant.
They didn't want to pay him.
The Giants didn't want to pay him, and tried to pay him a few seasons ago in the middle of the season. He said no to that deal. It didn't work out. Joe Shane was probably salty about it, but also like, we're not in a position to pay a running back high dollar. So I have to build this team in what's best for the New York Giants franchise, not what's best for Saquon and the sensitive fan base. So that's it. I'm really like, and I got a bunch of people hitting me up. You must be so butthurt. No, it's football. It's the business of football. Like, I would tell you, if anybody who's listening and my friends who actually watch the show and listen to the show, I'm not a liar. I don't lie about my feelings. If I was butthurt, I would say I'm butthurt. I'm not. It is what it is. Have fun. It's going to suck seeing you 2 times a year. It's going to suck when those highlight plays against the Commanders and the Cowboys, when you're actually behind a good O-line and breaking off plays and scoring touchdowns. It's going to suck to see that, but that's the life in the NFL and being an NFL fan. Your favorite players are going to move teams sometimes, and you just have to live with it. It's all good. Giants are going their own way.
I tell you what, man, I like it for fantasy.
Me too. It's not going to stop me from drafting him if it makes sense either. I'm not going to be like against taking him on one of my teams. And now I will say this about Saquon, and I'm sorry this is becoming like just this because we have to get to a lot of stuff. But I also don't think that Philly fans are getting what they think they're getting. Like, Saquon is a very good player still. He is not the same as he was when his first season or two. He's not. He doesn't break tackles as much. He's not as elusive. His vision has never really been great. It's always been average. Like, he is a good player, and he will do fantastic in Philly if he's not doing too many tush pushes. But he's not. You're not getting this all-world Adrian Peterson in his prime, LaDainian Tomlinson. You're not getting that.
And people have to remember too that the way the offense is, I think Barkley will return kind of similar value to what he gave you last year, but in a different way. I think it's going to be less volume, but more efficiency because, there's the fear of Hurts, and there's the better offensive line, and there's all this other stuff. But also, you always got to remember the curse of every Philly running back is you're not going to get a ton of 1-yard carries. You just won't.
Right. It's too efficient for Jalen to just get slammed in. So let's talk about more of these free agents, because we've already spent more time than we should on one player that got moved, free agency, picked up by a different team. So down the list.
Absolutely. I agree. And we talked about this before the show. We don't need to like deep dive into all of these. I just thought the Saquon thing was fun because obviously you're you. We are going to get into this stuff as we do all of these post-mortems, but just to kind of run the list, Russ to the Steelers, stealing money, but
perfect for Tomlin. I'll just say mediocrity at its finest. We're going to get to the Broncos soon.
Yes, and it's gonna be a perfect transition. T. Higgins wants to trade. He's not going to get it. Jerry Jeudy goes to the Browns, trying to salvage his career. Josh Jacobs to Green Bay. I find that interesting.
Yep.
Aaron Jones to the Vikings, which is like a pretty direct FU. DeAndre Swift to Chi-Town. Joe Mixon was cut for like a second, and then he was actually.
And I gotta say, I think that as of so far, the Texans are killing it. This was a fantastic move for them. Amazing what you can do when you have a awesome quarterback on a rookie contract.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because they can take on the contract, right?
They got Danielle Hunter too. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, because like to me, a GM doesn't earn his money until what happened in Philly last year, right? It's easy. The team build with the cheap quarterback that is effective is easy. It's everything that happens after those first 3 years that you got to watch. Zach Moss to Cincinnati, womp womp.
I kind of like that move, actually. I kind of like Zach Moss if he's going to be featured, because they don't really have much right now. They could draft a guy, but like Joe Mixon got a handful of touchdowns just by being on the Bengals, and I think Zach Moss can do the same thing.
Well, agreed. I guess what that womp womp energy is that like I don't see Zach Moss as a particularly explosive player, kind of like Joe Mixon, but like I just think that I don't know. It's like kind of like
Joe Mixon's better than Zach Moss.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think he's just like a poor man's version of Joe Mixon. So it's like I don't see that as like necessarily exciting for fantasy. Tony Pollard to Tennessee. I mean, obviously he's not the king, first and foremost.
No. That O-line has sucked.
Yeah, and awful O-line. So look, I mean, we'll talk about it more when we get to that team, but I still like Tajay Spears quite a bit. Just FYI.
He'll have the same role, which was sneaky decent in deep leagues.
Austin Eckler to the commies. Basically he's an Antonio Gibson upgrade. What I look at that as well. But I guess I won't. I'm not gonna go to the big one just yet. I've got one more to throw out there because the other moves are kind of irrelevant to me. Yeah. Calvin Ridley to the Titans. I think that is going to be a big deal in terms of where his ADP shifts in the fantasy community. We can have a conversation later on about like what we actually feel about Calvin Ridley.
He's becoming one of like the mainstays that we just continue to like talk about on this channel. Is Calvin Ridley? We can't get away from him.
Well, I mean, like apparently you can, because Atlanta and Jacksonville in back-to-back years got away from him. So
and he's still got a big contract.
Right. So, kind of mid in terms of like the way that I feel about that, but the big one, the most important one, the one that actually shakes up fantasy the most, in my opinion. And it literally makes our Atlanta episode obsolete at this point.
It is. Nobody watched it, so it's all good.
Kirko to ATL.
Yeah, love it, man. I love it for Atlanta. I think I know Kirk's coming off that injury, but he's not really a runner anyway. So if they can just protect him behind a already solid O-line, he's got some good weapons. I think it's going to be a fun season for Atlanta. I do.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning that okay, Achilles injuries are bad. He's
He's not
35.
young.
And I think it is his plant leg, if I'm not mistaken. So
True.
those things are challenging, and it wouldn't shock me if he doesn't look quite himself coming out of the gate. It wouldn't shock me if it's one of those things that, you know, early in the season, it's not as great as we expected. But like, dude, I'm saying all of that, but with the caveat of we had to endure the Desmond Ritter, Taylor Heineke conversation when it came to all Atlanta skill position players. Bijan, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it nerfed everybody and made it so that offense just wasn't good. I think that, you know, we thought that we talked about Justin Fields a lot in that episode and the possibility of that. Like that would have been a lot of fun for fantasy, but I don't think that anybody outside of the fantasy community really views Justin Fields as like a complete product as a quarterback and as a really solid quarterback. You know, I think a lot of folks still kind of see him more in like the project category. Kirk's an adult quarterback. Like you're going to get what you get from him. He can take what's there. And he's done really nothing in his career except see the field, take the profit, take what's given to him, and if the opportunity is there,
And feed his studs because he's really good at that.
Exactly, and he feeds the big dogs. So, yeah,
it's easy to do when you've got Jefferson.
So, I mean, look, Drake London's no Justin Jefferson, but I think he's pretty talented. So I'm stoked, man. Where are you at with all this?
Yeah, man. I think that let me just before we bury this, I'm just gonna say Darnell Mooney to Atlanta. Nothing that feels super exciting, but he should automatically be their wide receiver too, because they have like nobody behind. I don't like Van Jefferson sucks. So yeah, I love Kirk Cousins. I've always really liked Kirk Cousins. I've always, I've said it before on this channel how I have a fetish for underappreciated players, and Kirk is one of those guys to me. And he's just a great guy. I mean, I don't know if you saw the video of him just basically saying goodbye and thank you to Minnesota and all their fans and everything. Like, great dude. He's easy to root for.
I know.
I'm in the Atlanta area. I want to see. I know it's hard. You not really rooting for them being a Bucs fan, but I'm going to be rooting for Atlanta this year. I am.
If Kirk
I like what they got going on now.
Kirk Cousins gets back to his Minnesota form quickly, they're going to win the division. And I say that as a Bucs fan. They have a great roster outside of the quarterback position, and they don't have a idiot face as a coach.
Exactly. And you know what? I'll also say one other thing in terms of that division. You said that they're going to start slow. The Bucs, the schedule's going to have a big part to do with it, but we don't know the order in which they play, which teams yet. But they could get out to a slow start without the chemistry, where Baker has chemistry already with his teammates, and Kirk doesn't. So we'll see how that starts off in like the first 4 games of the season. If the Bucs get out to a higher start, faster start, and Atlanta struggles out the gate, that's going to have lasting effects throughout the season.
So check this out, man. We are, I guess, just about 20 minutes or so into the show. I promise you came here to hear about the Chargers.
We're going to talk about the Chargers.
I don't know why, but you're here. You're here to. I think the Chargers have one fake fan.
Well, one real fan, right? That lady who was going crazy.
Yeah. That's what I was referring to. That was the joke.
Yeah.
But I do have just one more thing before we move on from here, and it's more of just a philosophical question. Are we going to end up talking ourselves back into Kyle Pitts again? Are we going to do that?
Absolutely. You know why? You know
Um,
why? Because Hawkinson got traded to Minnesota and instantly value was boosted. That was with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins in Atlanta. It's gonna happen again. And you know what? I'm in.
mm,
Sign me
I don't
up.
know. I don't know. I don't know.
Listen, if it's a fourth round draft capital, hell no. Seventh, eighth, maybe even sixth.
Look,
Maybe, maybe, maybe.
if the value is there, the whole reason, like I haven't been a big Kyle Pitts guy. Like I'm concerned about him just in general. But look, if he's
Your
giving us
words.
this, like if he's giving us the same like draft dip, the same cost as he was, I mean, it won't be the same, right? Because it was ridiculous. It was almost in the 10th round. But like if it's giving that same type of value, yeah, like of course, like I'll take the value because he's got 1,000-yard season in him. He has technically done it as a rookie, and now they should have a functioning passing game. So I get that aspect of it, but I I'm still lukewarm to him. Like
Yeah.
there's plenty of time between now and draft day, so who knows? My temperature might get hot on him again, but
Well, you said it in a previous episode. Your words. He's a bust. So we'll see. We'll see, man. That's enough about Atlanta. This is not Atlanta part two. Chargers.
it is not. It is not.
Let's get to the team.
This is about the Chargers, the new look Chargers, kind of, sort of. They ended up getting a coaching upgrade. Obviously, it's the Harbaugh era in LA. They brought in Greg Roman as their OC. Honestly, I'm not going to pretend like I know a lot about Jesse Mintner, the DC.
I don't know shit about him. I don't.
But
Whatever.
he's different. So I'll
He's a
take
different person. Sure.
They were shit last year. I don't think that I'm saying anything like that controversial about it. They went they won 5 games, only scored just north of 20 points per game for 21st in the league. They allowed 23.4, which is good for 24th. They were 13th in passing, 26th in rushing. And the biggest name in all of Chargers land is J Herb, right? He played 13 games, completed 65% of his passes, little over 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns against 7 interceptions, 6.9 yards per attempt. Nice. The reality is those numbers stink, right? Not good. And I'm not going to like think for the audience here. I'm not going to tell you what to think. I have my ideas about Justin, but like it was a miserable season. He was injured all the time. It was shitty coaching. It was a bad supporting cast. Yes, I'm saying it was a bad supporting cast. I'm going to explore that hot take later. I'm going to have more to say about it. But to me, you're either a Herb truther or you're not. I've seen the talent from him. I've seen the way that he can throw the ball. I said I wasn't going to try to taint your opinions, but I guess it's going to come through anyway. Like Justin Herbert with real coaching and a real team can still be that guy, in my opinion. I just don't think he had much of a chance to showcase it. And unfortunately, I'm not so sure that it's a lightning fast turnaround in Los Angeles. I'm not sure if you feel any differently than that.
Well, something I think we should mention about the Chargers, as of today, they actually cut Mike Williams. So that's big news.
Okay.
I am a Herbert faithful. I want to frame the question this way. Every other team in the NFL, if they could just 1-to-1 trade their quarterback for Herbert, how many teams would do it? I think it's quite a lot. The majority.
I'm like, dude, I mean, honestly, only like 3 teams have immediately come to my mind that wouldn't do it.
Right? So, like, okay, then in a way, you're saying he's a top 5 quarterback, you know? So, yes, he hasn't won a lot of games. He hasn't even won a playoff game. He should have, but their defense got wrecked by Trevor Lawrence in the second half of a game against the Jags. But, man, I still believe in him. I think that his supporting cast has been good, not great. A lot of other players would be happy to be in the situation he's been in. But for some reason, it just feels like this team is cursed. For fantasy, though, he was pretty good for most of the season. You know, he got hurt, unfortunately, later on. And he is a guy in fantasy. If people are down on him and I can get him at a value after I've filled my other positions and I'm comfortable with, you know, all the other positions, maybe besides tight end, my running backs and wide receivers look good, I'm happy to take Herbert again. I think that the argument against him this season is 100% speculation, and that, well, Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh are run the ball hardos no matter what. And I don't know how true that is. If they've got a great quarterback, they're going to use him. So
yeah, I mean, I think they've got to be able to like look at their personnel and adjust. And there's a reason why, you know, Harbaugh had his choice of a lot of jobs, right? There's a reason why he wanted this job. Because again, you said it. Now, I want to color a little bit to the idea that I don't think Justin Herbert is a top 5 quarterback today, because that means that, you know, to be a top 5 quarterback means you have to have top 5 production. You have to win some playoff games. But when I say that, I'm just saying the youth mixed with the talent in a vacuum. I think that there's a lot of teams out there that have been piecing it together a quarterback that are like, damn, if we can just get that guy, we can make a lot happen. But no, I actually honestly did not see that Mike Williams got cut today, but I made these notes days ago and I wrote down, it would not surprise me if they cut him just 8 to 12 million in dead cap, because he's injured Gabe Davis. He's Gabe Davis West. That's like always what I've thought of Mike Williams. He's about to be 30. And I never saw him as anything more than like a big physical contested catch guy that I didn't see a lot of in between game from him. So
yeah, he was definitely a deep target kind of guy, but he had the quarterback perceptually to see the max results of that. So he always got a lot of hype.
Right. Well, I mean, this is a perfect segue, honestly. Quentin Johnston. Now we know why they picked him, because they just want future Mike Williams, young Mike Williams.
You know, if he can turn into Mike Williams after his rookie season, I'd actually be very surprised.
Okay, fair.
You know, I don't. You can go over the stats, but I'm already out on him. I'll let somebody else take the flyer. I just don't even care.
It's hard for me. We both disliked the pick. Literally on draft day, we both disliked the pick where it was taken. He didn't do anything to prove us wrong or show anything differently. 38 for 67. That's not a lot of, you know, targets is an earned stat, right? That's not a lot of targets in general. Not a great percentage. He did end up with 2 touchdowns. All of this, Andrew, was on 65% of the snaps. He was out there. He was playing. But
Yeah.
just didn't earn the looks. But that being said, even though I didn't like it, it's hard for me to completely be gone and out on a guy after one season in a bad scheme with a bad coach, which I think we all agree that.
And he has the draft capital that means the Chargers have to try to give him a real opportunity to earn it.
He has to, bro. I mean, but look, I mean, I can keep going.
Unless they pick Malik Neighbors at 5. Then it's over.
Yeah, and you know what? Like maybe the new regime comes in and does that, right? That it's like, hey, this wasn't our mistake. We're not going to bury ourselves with our own mistake, right?
And they just cut Williams, and it's not like Keenan is young and been healthy. Like he's constantly he's been hurt a lot in his career.
Look, man. I mean, you're the segue king right now. You're taking me.
Did I mention Keenan Allen? Yeah, he was really good last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a perfect segue. He is the only truly great receiver in this entire group. The only truly, I think, honestly effective receiver out of this entire group. But he's old, Andrew. That's the challenge. Is that like no one? Keenan Allen was awesome yet last year. He also got pretty unsustainable volume.
Wild volume.
He was spammed. He got 150 targets in 13 games. 150 targets is a good season for a lot of number one wide receivers. That's you can do that. It's like a 200 target pace.
Right.
It ultimately ended up in 1,207, which is for that volume kind of shows you not a ton of deep stuff, right?
Well, what was his overall ranking? Where did he end up? Do you know?
I didn't track fantasy rankings.
I'll check it out real quick.
We can look it up. I'll kind of keep going as you look that up. But you said it. He's 32. He obviously can't do it forever. He's in the last year of his contract.
Wide receiver 8 on the year.
He ended up as wide receiver 8 on the year.
Mm-hmm. Wide receiver 8. Yeah.
I mean,
and I'm just going to real quick now that I have Sleeper open.
I don't think he'll be wide receiver 8 this year.
Targets. I'm just going to run down the list. This is going through week 14 with 1 bye week. This is the targets. 9, 10, 20 against Minnesota.
Oh my God.
5 against Vegas. Bye week. 11, 9, 10, 9, 14, 16, 16, 9, and 12.
Why am I reminded of that scene in SpongeBob of the fish? How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man? Like fucking rolling him out there, like treating him like he's prime Megatron. It's unsustainable. It's great. It's not sustainable. Like maybe you're right, dude.
But then again,
help.
If Quentin Johnson sucks and they don't take a wide receiver early, maybe it is sustainable. Maybe he's just going to get targeted up the ass again.
One last ride.
No,
if they don't, if this is it, if this is their entire receiver room, it's worth mentioning.
And Eckler's
also
gone. They signed Gus Edwards, who's not a pass catcher.
Yeah,
it's an interesting dynamic right now. We have to see what the draft, how that plays out.
It's worth mentioning that they also have Josh Palmer, who's a Jag, but he is there as of now. He's
okay. He's okay. He's not getting anybody hot and bothered.
So I think that all of that is to say you have one real receiving threat who is in the twilight of his career. So I don't think it's doing Herb any favors in terms of, being a fantasy quarterback himself.
Some speculation. How would you feel if Brock Bowers was their pick at 5? Because it's not like they have a tight end of any kind of high stature.
Yeah, Gerald Mid Everett.
I don't even know if he's on the team anymore, actually.
It wouldn't matter.
Does it matter? Yeah.
It wouldn't matter.
But if that's the weapon they choose to go with, I mean, all the mocks.
Give it to me.
All the mocks are saying Joe Alt because they want to be a run the ball team, as people are assuming only. But I don't think that's really true. But Joe Alt would fit that bill, the right tackle or left tackle, excuse me. He's a right tackle according to Giants fans because we can get Joe Alt and move him to right. It's like, it's not that simple. Anyways, that's a whole nother fucking conversation. But yes, a left tackle would fit in well. They have Rashawn Slater. It's a good fit for them. But I don't know. The draft is going to be very telling for this team.
Well, they need the draft. Their talent. We're saying all of this. By the way, I had notes on Eckler. He's gone. I thought he might be gone, but he's officially gone.
But you can talk about how abysmal his season was.
Yeah, and I'll quickly run through it. He's a great guy, and he's been one of the proponents of fantasy football for a long time. So I don't need to I don't
have him on the show.
Yeah, for real, right? I don't need to be the guy that pours extra dirt on his grave, but you hate to see it. His production did fall off a cliff.
Yeah.
3.5 a carry in 14 games. And the worst part about it was, okay, the ground production went away. That sucks. But he didn't even really do it in the air like we've been used to seeing from him. 51 catches for 436 and 1. Decent numbers for regular running back, but not the pass catching amazing theatrics that we're used to from Austin Bleckler.
Yeah.
So it was just miserable, man.
Running backs, unfortunately, this is the life of a running back, where it's a steep cliff, and when you fall off, you fall off. So
it's bad.
And the thing is, I will say, so I think him going to a new team might get some people more intrigued. He did not get signed to be the featured back in Washington. Look at the contract. And when you look at the eye test and then the numbers back it up, his explosiveness was gone. He is not going to be that guy ever again. And that's the cliff.
He had a 10% broken tackle rate last year. Yeah.
I'm throwing up in my mouth from the people. And I have actually, fun fact of my own personal life, get some intimate with you. I have actually never had Austin Eckler in any league. Not for not wanting him, just never has worked out in that way for me.
I don't know that I have either.
Yeah, but I guess this season I'm really happy I didn't.
Yeah, no shit, man. And obviously, you touched on the O-line, and I'll just very briefly color in a little bit extra there. Rashawn Slater is the only real, what I think is 100% a keeper on that O-line. He's really good. But Corey Linsley, he missed basically the whole season with his heart dysfunction type of thing. So what's going to happen there? I don't know. This looks like an O-line rebuild. Will Clapp just has a funny name. The memes, all the Will Clapp memes are hilarious to me, but he's kind of just a meh player.
Will Clapp for food.
Yeah. And I won't get into it too much, but people have fun with the Will Clapp name. So yeah, man. I mean, I don't know. This is a team where we have to hope that the cavalry is coming, that there's going to be a talent infusion, whether that's through free agency or the draft. What do you think? What are your thoughts? Hearing all this, where are you taking Herb next year? Where you're feeling good about it?
Okay, so just to answer your question, next season, if I can fill out my roster in a redraft league and then take Herbert in the 6th at the earliest, if that's a possibility, I'd consider it. But knowing myself, I'll probably not bother, because quarterbacks can always be found. In one quarterback leagues, there's always somebody who ends up with 2 really high-performing quarterbacks on their team. That's an easy trade to make, assuming that your team is complete garbage and you have assets to give up. Streaming quarterbacks, especially later in the season when you see which defenses have fallen apart, you can always target that, assuming they're not on teams already, obviously. There are ways to get good production at quarterback without paying a premium. So
Yeah,
I'm not against Austin Eckler, or excuse me, Justin Herbert in any way, but I don't see myself like actually targeting him.
If it's this same thing again, I just don't think I can take him because his name is always going to have value and it's always going to drive up the ADP. So if it's this basic team again and it's not rebuilt in some kind of major way, I can't talk myself into it because he can run a little bit, but not enough to make a big time difference for fantasy.
Give me Kirk in the 11th. It's going to end up being the same production.
Like, because what I'm saying is like, okay, Justin Herbert is amazing, but he doesn't have the weapons, Andrew. Well, we just went through everything. Keenan Allen is great. He's, he's kind of on the borderline of maybe being a gold jacket guy when everything's said and done. But like, again, are you gonna trust, an older player that has had his struggles with injuries as being like the mainstay of a receiving room? I'm not so sure. But if you give me a Brock Bowers, if you give me a Malik Neighbors, if you inject some life into that offense, well, I don't know. That might change things. But right now, man, they're gonna be in a battle. Depending a lot of what the way that I feel about them in terms of like what their record looks like, a lot of that is just gonna have to do with what some of these other teams do at quarterback and what they end up looking like. But I just Harbaugh took a few years to turn Michigan around. I think it's going to be the same thing here. I guess that's my conclusion.
I don't know what you're talking about because they win the offseason every year. So don't worry. Come August, everyone's going to be like, go Chargers.
Isn't that crazy how that happens? Like we can talk and I'm just as bad about it. I'll do it too. But like we can talk ourselves into just about anything preseason. The longer that we have football withdrawals and the further away that we get away from what happened last season, which is why I'm really happy we're doing this, the post-mortems, because what I'm going to do when I feel it happening, when I feel my goblin brain being like, shiny Chargers, Justin Herbert, the goat.
RB1 in the 13th round. Oh!
So when I feel that happening, I'm just gonna pop my AirPods in. I'm gonna listen to this, and I'm gonna future Paul. This is me reminding you: the Chargers suck. Don't do it, idiot.
But Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert. Okay, so overall, with this fucking team, LA Chargers should have never left San Diego. It's bullshit.
For real. San Diego's a nice town. I've been.
Never been there. Never been to Cali. Yeah, man. This team was a freaking dumpster fire by the end of the year. Herbert gone. Their defense fell to absolute shambles. I mean, they looked like me and you were out there trying to play safety. It was really, really freaking bad at the end of the season for them. Next season, there will be fantasy value to be had on this team.
Right.
We'll see. They signed Gus Edwards. They're probably going to draft a running back. If Harbaugh and Greg Roman are true to themselves, like they're going to want bodies, useful bodies at the running back position as well. Try to work play action with Herbert. He is good at that. There will be fantasy value to be had on the Chargers, but they're also, I think they can get overhyped. I'm very interested to see this. We should probably look up best ball rankings because that's the only accurate ADPs you can really get right now on Keenan Allen, because he's got that like pull of a great season one way, and then the other way he's got the pull on the opposite side, that tug of war of but his age, bro, but his injuries, bro. And they're valid. It's valid both ways.
Well, if the pull is happening, if it's happening on both sides, then I think that probably means that the risk is probably going to end up getting built into the ADP. And if that's the case, like, dude, I don't mind. We did this with Mike Evans last year, right? And Mike Evans didn't even, and Mike Evans had to change quarterbacks. That's not the case here. We did this with Mike Evans where we wanted to bury him because he was older, because of other like outside factors or whatever. Like, if it's a great player that's coming into the season healthy and the draft value is there, then why not? I'm good with that.
I'll just say this. Sorry, man. Go ahead. My bad.
No, I was just, in conclusion, I think that if that age risk is built into the value, then I'm fine with it. But look, if we're talking about getting drafted as not just a wide receiver 1, but a high-end wide receiver 1, which was really his finish, that's a little spicy for me. That's a little spicy.
Yeah. I think, we have to see who's ahead of him. I'm going to imagine he finished the wide receiver 8. I'm going to imagine he's drafted below the wide receiver 8 because the infusion of talent coming into the league right now is tremendous. People are excited about that. The wide receivers getting moved are not really playing a factor in this, I think, too much. But I will say this. If Keenan Allen is around the same ADP as he was last year, or even a little higher, I'm still in on that because Keenan Allen's game is not predicated on his athleticism. It really is his great hands and technician skills. And that doesn't really go away just because you're older. I know it was a first half of the season thing, and the second half of the season he fell off, but Thielen's very similar in that way. He's not as good as Keenan, but he plays in a similar way, and he was still effective for a good bit of the season last year. I think Keenan can be similar.
Side note, I know this kind of came in late, but Deontay Johnson, you just reminded me of that. Deontay Johnson to Carolina.
That's right.
I like that a little bit. It was a trade.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying it's a kind of an odd trade.
Oh, because another player came back. The cornerback came back.
Yeah, and like, I don't get it. Like, the Steelers traded their wide receiver 1. It was kind of an odd thing, if you ask me.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't. They know what they have in-house.
Who is who?
George, man.
George is overrated, man.
I think that.
Yes, he is.
You know what? Hold on. We'll
have this debate later.
Let's save this for the next episode. I have thoughts. I have thoughts about George.
All right, man.
But we can save it for that.
Let's do that. You've heard it here. We leave you on a cliffhanger with our argument that we're about to have. But all right, that's been the Chargers and all one of their fans out there. Catch you in the next one. Peace.